This is a podcast that I know the small subset, the subset of the subset of swimming nerds, the real nerdy nerds of swimming are definitely looking forward to listening to. It was a podcast that I was looking forward to recording because I know Herbie. He's a great guy. He's a great coach. He's a great up and coming mind, if you can even really call him up and coming anymore in swimming. He's really just here. But he is a scientific mind. He is someone that loves to study the sport and study it from the perspective of different sports as well, and how he can apply things through the things that he's read, the things that he's talked to other coaches about. And, he's a very philosophical coach, if you want to put it that way. But I'm going to get out of your way. Like the video if you like the video. Let's discuss some things in the comments section about Herbie's perspective on coaching and the progression of the sport and just all that stuff in general. Thanks for clicking on the video, whether you're on YouTube or on Spotify. I guess it's not really a video. It's just, you're just listening to something. So if you're on Spotify, leave a review on the video, or the podcast rather. All right, I'm out of your way. I'm done. Here's the podcast. Take it away, Kyle. Take it away, Herbie. Enjoy. Two Sun Devils on a podcast. Two Sun Devil alumni. I asked Hasbullah to join, but unfortunately he was occupied. But how's life on the pool deck? How's Tempe? How's just the world of Herbie going right now?
Great. Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been, definitely this time of year is always busy, but just getting rolling with everything. Got our first meet in 2 days from now. University of Georgia is coming down. But it's been a great year. It's definitely really exciting with just the talent that we have on the college team, as well as the pros that are training here. So it's, pretty incredible environment that I'm definitely thankful to be a part of every day.
Yeah, your pro group is stout. I got to come out there and film a little bit. How many months ago is that now? Probably like 6 months ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think y'all had probably, it was like 10, maybe 11 people. How many, do you know the total head count on the pro group right now?
I think it's 14 or 15. But yeah, it's pretty solid. It's kind of exciting because we're doing, like on Friday, it's kind of it's long course, off distance events against Georgia, where it's like kind of the, it's the 200 relay. So like 200 free, 200 medley.
Oh, nice.
4 free, 4 medley, but long course day one. And then we're doing like 150s. And we're having the pros swim during the breaks. And it's normally like, in the past, it'd be like, okay, we're going to have Ryan swim a 50. We're going to have Chase do a 200 IM. But now it's like, oh, we got like a pretty solid heat here of pretty fun race.
Yeah, that makes it a lot more fun. I think, and we swam, I think it was Colorado when I was in college. We did like a short course meters, like off distance. And so like on my swim cloud, I have like a 150 fly on there or something like that. I was going to wait. To kind of like trickle my way into this part of the conversation, but we'll just dive right into it. So are we wearing suits?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It's like, it's funny talking with, like I've talked to a pretty good amount of coaches. And I've told each of them, they normally ask, they're like, well, how do you get the swimmers like confident with that? How do you do that? I'm like, I literally haven't had a swimmer not be excited about that yet. It's only the coaches who don't want to do it.
I've never understood it. And I was someone that benefited a ton from wearing a suit. So, I think honestly, for me, it was like, it might've detracted from my ability to like to perform in a suit. And obviously, way better than I do, kind of like the science behind it. But yeah, tell me that I'm throwing a suit on for a dual meet and it's something in my brain. Even this far removed from the sport, I'm like, it's a different environment. So is this like, do you guys have the entire season mapped out? Are you guys a suits team now as long as the program exists and, Bob and you have the keys, or what is like kind of the idea of like, obviously you guys suit up like more than anyone in the country, I would say. You're suiting up at least once a week, right?
Yeah. We suited up last Friday. We do that often. And the reason behind suiting up in meets, in our opinion, is when you're looking at a season and you're trying to look at how individuals perform and how they develop, the numbers have to mean something. And if you're comparing in season to tapered, when you're wearing a completely different attire, you're not actually learning if adaptation is occurring. You're just I mean, some people like yourself, there's several on our team who are 4 seconds faster and 100 breaths when they put a suit on. And it's like it just changes the way they move. So we need to allow them to practice that. We need to get the feedback as to if the training is actually making progress there. And then we're also having to know if the taper actually worked. And that's I think the biggest thing, because I know that's the worry of a lot of teams. And even some of the coaches I've talked to, they're like, well, I don't want them being too sharp too early. And it's like, you're not changing the sharpness. You're just lying to all of us that the times in which they're going aren't correct. Um, so that's kind of the reason why we want to do it. And yeah, I mean, with that being said, it's not like we're just, okay, no matter what, we're wearing suits forever. I think that's kind of making the same mistake that has gotten us into this point. Because if there is a time to where it's like, okay, maybe it is better to race differently, just a new stimulus of wearing no suits. Well, then we're okay to make that change. But yeah, that's kind of for the short term. I mean, for this weekend, that's the plan. We told those coaches, the Georgia coaches, before, so they weren't surprised. But which I guess, side note, I feel like is kind of silly that we are expected to do that in the sport of swimming. Um, but yeah, I mean, out of the gentleman's rules, we kind of gave them the gave them the heads up.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like a college baseball game, and you have one
Yeah,
team that's like, "Hey, we're going to use wood bats today." The other
yeah,
team's like, "All right." Granted, we're like in the BB core era. If you're a baseball fan, you kind of
yeah,
understand that reference. So like, they kind
yeah,
of nerfed the bats anyway. But I
yeah,
wanted to talk about actually something that you brought up. You have people on your team that benefit more from putting the suit on. I think I was one of those people. Without like telling you why, I just generally, from like just intuition, think that it benefited me more. Do you have any like insight on why specific swimmers benefit more from suits? Because, we're not wearing full body, thick polyurethane suits anymore. People kind of like to say, the suits don't really have as much of an impact as they used to. But I think that's complete bullshit. I think,
yeah.
especially with the suits that are out now, I threw on a Mizuno for the first time, I think like a
Oh
year
yeah,
ago, and was like, this feels like what I would have expected it to feel to wear like a polyurethane suit. I was like, this
yeah.
thing's walking for me. But do you have like any sort of insight on why certain swimmers perform better in suits?
I mean, I think it's just anatomically we're all a little bit different. I think it's like the limb lengths, the joint lengths of that change. It's the way in which we float. We all have a center of gravity and a center of buoyancy, and the relationship between those two is kind of what allows us to float. So putting something on that raises that or shifts the center of buoyancy can really change how people float. And at the end of a 100 or 200 or any race for that matter, it just changes the way you move through the water, which is one silly that, I mean, if coaches don't want to ever practice that, like, go ahead, we will. But yeah, like I think it just changes. It just changes the way we move, and we have to master that if we want to reach the highest level. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess going back to the theory behind it, it's if there's raising the average peak in the season might raise the top peak. We're not trying to, but for some reason we have this preconceived notion in swimming where if you're not like a tapered swimmer who drops a ton of time, well then the taper is not that valuable. But that's just not physiology. So that's kind of our theory is, yeah, we're going to understand the swimmer, we're going to understand how we're doing that, and we're going to practice how we're doing that and getting a lot of exposures to it and doing a lot of different things takes the superstition out of it. Because I was the same way, to where it was like, okay, like I don't have a suit on, so like I'm not really gonna care that much.
Right.
Which I'm sure you could say that's incorrect of the athlete to think that, but
I thought the exact same thing. So
yeah.
maybe we're both wrong, but I don't think we were alone in thinking that either.
Yeah, but that's another thing that we want to do. Like, we've kind of told our kids, like, hey, this is we're trying to add pressure. We're trying to do that. So if there's people who have anxieties and stuff, hopefully we figure that out week 1 or 2. I know myself personally. I remember last year when we swam. like Stanford and Cal at the beginning of the second semester when we were like, okay, we're suiting up for this. I was like really nervous for that. And I was like, why am I so like this is still just a dual meet? Why do I feel more nervous? And then we did the same thing at U of A. And then we had our Pac-12 meet, and it was like those nerves came up. And I know myself personally was like, okay, I know how to handle these. Like this is just part of it. I mean, to I guess go into the specifics of it. Whenever I get nervous, I have trouble sleeping. So then I like basically taught myself the skills to like change how my mind was working to be able to fall asleep. And I know, well, I think that there's a lot of kids who have similar anxieties towards that. So when we put this pressure on them earlier, we're giving them the skills to handle those better later in the season rather than avoiding those and then just piling them all on at the at the most important time. I mean, I remember that same like it's literally been that's always been my struggle getting nervous, and I know for a fact it was like never one time in college did I have any issue like sleeping or even anxieties coming into the meet, but every conference meet, every meet where we shaved, which was rare, it was like, okay, now I'm super nervous. I hope everything goes well. I had a whole like ritual and a lot of just ideas that I get superstitions. And we're trying to take those out of them. I mean, we train that a lot. Like I guess if some of the kids are listening, they'll figure out why I'm doing this. But sometimes throughout the year when we suit up, we normally, if it's like we're suiting up and doing efforts from the block, we give them like, okay, tell them what everything is. And on days where it's just a meet warm up, or like, okay, on the 40-minute mark, heat one goes. And then a couple times this season, we'll come in and I'll tell them, be like, okay, and on the 15-minute mark, we're going. So get your suit on, warm up. Like, so it just totally changes everything. And my goal of that is to try and get them to remove their superstitions and figure out what they actually need to do to get ready. So if they have 15 minutes and 7 of those is putting a suit on, what are they actually doing to get prepared? And hopefully giving them those skills rather than continuing the superstitions. If I have to do this warm up, I have to drink this energy drink, I have to do this to swim fast. It's like that is false. So we're trying to change that.
Yeah, I mean, I just hearing stuff like this and getting to talk to coaches, I just wish I could start over.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think the not having issues sleeping problem also, or not
Yeah.
problem, might have been a result of probably like overtraining as well and
Yeah.
doing too many yards.
Yeah.
Because we were definitely really good at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, thinking about also like hyper elite performance and where swimming is heading, because I really think we're heading in that direction.
Oh
Obviously, we've
yeah.
been trying to the entire time the sport's been around, but I think we're
Yeah.
getting to the point. And I like to draw comparisons between us and track a ton, and track
Yeah.
is way ahead of us in terms of I think reaching like the human peak of performance.
Yeah.
People are always going to say like humans are always going to adapt and evolve, and we're always going to get faster and faster, but you don't see track world records getting broken all that often unless it's Mondo Duplantis in pole vault.
Yeah.
It's pretty much it. But in swimming, it's like thinking about, and I have this theory that a kid that goes 133 in high school in the 200 freestyle has a much better chance at going 128 in the 200 freestyle in college, not because like he's just like better, but because now he gets to try to like perfect that 200. Because when you start talking about going 128 or 127, you start throwing around these crazy numbers, you're starting to talk about being perfect. And I mean, racing in suits, I wish more than anything I had the opportunity to suit up 7 times throughout the year so that in a 200 IM I could go, I'm going to sprint the first 50 and see what happens. Because my entire career, I swam the exact same way. And then once my kind of like physiology started to run out, my development, because when you're a guy, when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, you like walk by a pool and you go at best time, you just look up on the board and it's like your name's up there. And I mean, I just swam it the same way. I would go, all right, I'm not a butterflyer. I can't do this first 50 fast. I'm going to die if I go out too fast because I'm not good at this. And then would just do it again and again. And then believe it or not, I went, similar times. And yeah, I mean, I wish more than anything, I could just like suit up midweek, throw in a pad, rip a 200 IM and die when no one's watching. I mean, the stimulus for pressure thing is, I mean, that's hugely important.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because that's kind of exactly yeah what our philosophy is, and it's I guess this is a little message to the whole swimming community, but I think one of the biggest disservices that we do is thinking that the best performance is having just like your taper meet be so much better than all of your other meets. What we want to do is be prepared to be as fast as possible at that. Sometimes swimming fast during the year will help prepare, well, every time I think swimming fast throughout the year will help you prepare to do that. So even if the difference between your best time and your best dual meet time isn't a huge percentage, we're trying to be the best that we can at the end of the season. And there's certain individuals who need that, who need to practice the race strategy, who need to practice what they do in warm up, and have the just ability to explore and kind of play with what we're trying to do, so we can learn. It's not this. The reality is it's not a plan. It's more of a process, of a learning process, and I personally think it's a disservice to when coaches preach that it's like, okay, we're following this plan exactly and it's going to work out exactly that, because I personally haven't ever seen it do that. Maybe there are some coaches who can do it that way, but it's more of like the coach being aware and watching, like, okay, how are they reacting to these things? How do we change it? And allowing the athletes to do the same is just such a valuable um, thing, because it's ultimately their career, and giving them the space to take control of it and to um, yeah, like learn exactly like you said, of like, okay, I don't know exactly what's the best way to swim this 200 IM. Right now it's September. Hopefully by March I can get it pretty solid. And if we 7 times, that's not even that many reps. But if we
No, it's
try to
not.
do that um, and take it seriously every time, that's going to help.
Yeah, it's not that many reps, but it's better than one. And I mean, swimming
Yeah,
fast all season is just fun too. It's just
yeah,
exciting. Like,
yeah,
I think it's kind of the Olympic dilemma, right? We have
yeah,
this 4 year cycle where we have this one opportunity. And I
yeah.
was talking to, I think it was Josh Pernot about this. And I was like,
Okay.
dude, I mean, getting third at the Olympics. Imagine like in your career, you get one job interview. And then after that, you have to wait 350 days, 3 years and 350
Yeah,
days to try that job interview again. And then after that, you have to reset.
yeah,
And it's like, if you
yeah,
get second at that job interview, your life changes forever. But if you get third,
yeah,
you're done. You're just done. And yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I think the NCAA season still has just such a huge opportunity for growth and a huge opportunity to be a kind of like the catalyst for the sport, hopefully starting to
yeah,
change a little bit and become more of a swim fast all the time type
yeah,
situation. Because I was talking to Rowdy in my last podcast, and he was like, if you're not going to swim fast, like, why should I care? Why should I care sitting up in the stands watching you kind of like do an elevated practice? Like it's kind of like
yeah.
going to like a spring game in football. You know, the difference between a spring game, they have the spring game. It's like a little, like warm up, get everybody excited. I mean, it's like we have an entire season of spring games for some
Yeah,
teams, and then like the national championship. And
yeah,
that's really it.
yeah,
Um, it's weird. I don't know if there's really any solution. Hopefully there is at some point. I think, and obviously I'm super biased because I'm team suit up all the time, suit up for morning practice, night practice,
yeah,
whatever. I think we just need one company. Granted, this would probably like kill the entire technical racing suit industry to make like
yeah,
a hyper durable like suit that you can spray with something and like have it just be like hydrophobic again, but like make it
yeah,
only legal for dual meets, and then like you have to go back to the regular stuff later on.
yeah. Well, this is the. I think here's the biggest thing. I think teams probably think we're using new suits and stuff all the time. We're not. Most of the kids are wearing their suits from high school, and we're just reusing them. Like it. That's another thing that's like crazy to me. And we've taught. That's the coach's fault. That's not. I mean, some of it, some swimmers' fault of that. But we're trying to act like these suits last one race, and that is false. That is 100% a lie. Um, I mean, I know Bob said that. Michael Phelps warmed up in his suit every time. Every time he had multiple swims, he didn't take that thing off, so he's at least wearing them a couple times. Obviously, he had a different type of funding than the
Yeah.
normal kid. But um, I mean, we have our first couple years, everybody would get one suit and at midseason and one at the end of the year, and
Mhm.
that's still we've done that. We just tell them, okay, whatever suits you wore in high school, bring those because we're going to wear them all the time. And yeah, they're going to be worn out, but they don't really wear out that fast. Like, I mean, I know I even had a few kids at NCAAs where it's like, okay, I've seen them wear that suit probably 25 times in practice, did all right at
Yeah.
NCAA. So we don't need to have a brand new suit. That's where we go back to this superstition that we're kind of training into them to where it like, okay, 2 weeks out, I ordered my suit. It's going to come in a week before. I'm going to take the tag off before I go to the pool. First time it touches water is when I dive in. It's like, you don't need to do that, man. But
Yeah.
there's probably 75% of swimmers who think they need to do that. And guys, if you're listening, you don't. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, I think we just need to calm the hell down. I
Yeah.
think that's what we need to do just in general.
Yeah.
We need to be a little bit more more
Yeah.
rugged
Yeah.
and realize that like yeah, I mean if you
Yeah.
take your
Maybe if we
suit
just
off a
get
minute
better, we
before.
won't need to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to talk a little bit about I mean we've brought up both of us obviously like I think we could have an entire conversation about things that we did wrong and
Yeah.
maybe we will do that right now. But as kind of a coach, I want to start with like your coaching origin story. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of seen as like the mad scientist of swimming of sorts, whether you want to give yourself that
Yeah.
title or not. I just gave it to you and I told
Yeah.
Olivia that I was going to get you a lab coat. And now I feel like that
Yeah.
might have to be something that I eventually do once it's in the
Oh
budget.
yeah. No, for
But
sure.
when was there like a moment where I think I've talked to you about like trying to break 20 was like a big thing for you. You were like, I got to
Yeah.
figure out how to do this. But was there a specific moment where you were like, I'm going to be a coach. I want to be a coach. This is going to be what I want to do.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like I mean, I guess I'm in a way lucky with that. Like I specifically remember having a conversation with one of my teammates when I was 14 and told him that I was like, I'm going to be a swim coach. So I've always liked that. I've liked that side of the sport. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I'd come and watch the like flow swimming weekly Wednesday workouts were the things
Oh
that I
yeah.
looked forward to so much. Like all the time. So I always liked that part. But I'd say my real origin story was so I mean I had great coaches like in my Rourke Fink, who coaches at U of A actually, was my club coach growing up, and he was an incredible coach, like years in front of I think the average club coach at that time. And really, that was something I took for granted and thought that was just normal. And it was like, okay, this is just a normal guy. And then I had a pretty miserable time in college swimming. Um, Never went any best times. And then my last year swimming, I swam at our like Scott Goodrich, who was our coach the sprinters at that time. They actually at ASU, he moved to coach Caesar Cielo, and our coaches were like, "Hey, we're not getting a new sprint coach." So we had one guy come in 2 days a week, and then the rest they were like, "You're on your own." And I was like, "This is the greatest thing that's ever. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life." So like I wrote us all the workouts on those days. I went to the store. I bought stopwatches. I brought an iPad where we would film each other, and we'd like stand out of the pool, time each other, and then switch watches and do the set. And that's how we did it. Broke the school record in the 200 medley relay that year, which I was pretty proud of.
There you go.
Then I was like, okay. Basically, I was like, do I? I was kind of reinvigorated with the sport at that point because I'm pretty unhappy for the whole time. And I had about 6 weeks from Pac-12s to the Mesa Pro Series here, um, and I hadn't gone a best time in college. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just train 100% myself. I went to the rec center, didn't even train in this pool. It was like I'm doing it 100% the way I want to do it. And if I go a best time, then I know like I at least valid on that. And that was the first meet I went at best time, prelims, finals, the 100 free, best time, faster in finals, best time in the 50 free, faster in finals. And then that summer, actually worked with a club coach here, Charlie Cunningham, who thought a lot differently. It was kind of more of what I wanted to do, and went best times every race. Same thing, like literally didn't not go a best time that whole summer. Um, and then was like still not that good. So I was like, okay, I can probably focus on like I'm going to start a coaching career, and that's when I started coaching at Phoenix Swim Club. Um, and I was fortunate, I guess, in a way, to at that point still be like, I'm not going to listen to one swim coach ever. Like at that point, I was literally like, I think I was too far, but I was like, I'm not going to listen to a single coach. I'm going to read every book I can find written by physiologists, by all the Soviet Union stuff. I mean, I've got right here is one of the Bibles. um, yeah, like basically every it's mostly track and field, surprisingly a lot more of the field coaches, and learn kind of how they train and try to apply that to swimming. So I came of like forget everything I know and just read every day. Still a habit. I try and read an hour every day still, and just apply that stuff to swimming. Now I'm definitely more open. Like I don't not listen to swim coaches, but that's where I came from. I mean, it's like all of those guys who I looked up to the most. I mean, Verkhoshansky, Bondarchuk, all of these Soviet Union coaches. It's crazy that they did it the way that I would love to do it, the way I kind of think that we should do it, to where it's like, okay, you got to be able to do it, show why it worked, how it worked, and be able to explain that to other people because that's how our sport is going to get better. So I think that would be my origin story because it's definitely not that I wasn't inspired by coaches, but I was so burnt on the sport that it was like, okay, I'm gonna take something completely different and apply it to this sport because like we obviously don't have all the answers. So kind of coming from the total opposite end of like, yeah, coming from I mean, truly like beginner infant mindset and like, okay, here's what this book says to do. Let's try this. And like, okay, that actually worked really well. um, and then try and I mean, I've been like always been tracking the numbers and the times of things and try and make that actually mathematically make sense. So that's still what really inspires me today.
Yeah. Man, when you get like a year removed from the sport, especially I think in our era, it's amazing how quickly you can look back and be like, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah,
Like, I could have done so many things differently. And I think, yeah, I mean, obviously your Twitter is incredible. Coming from a person that is probably spends too much time on Twitter or X or whatever you
yeah,
want to call it. You've
yeah.
quite the I mean, I love it. I love all the like the random training
Thanks.
aids that pop up out of nowhere, the drills and stuff. I've
Yeah,
tried a couple of them and failed miserably
nice.
because I mean, I haven't been in the water enough. I think
Yeah,
you've probably read more books in like the past week than I have in my entire life, which is probably
yeah,
a little bit of an issue on my end and also like a little bit of a success on your end as
yeah,
well. But what is like one or two things, or I mean, if you want to go just to the one thing that you think has, because we talk about swimflation a lot, and if you're listening, you don't know what that
yeah,
means. It is just the rapid growth and especially the growth in like depth within this sport and like how many people are like if you look at junior nationals, like how many kids are going like 19.5 in the 50 free now when I
yeah,
think when I was like in late middle school it was like Jimmy Fegan and high school was like 19.3
yeah,
and it was like what? Like that's
yeah,
unbelievable. And then now it's like a
yeah,
kid goes 19.5 and everyone's like, yeah, or Swim Swam puts him as like the best of the rest. And you're
yeah.
like, what is happening? What is like if you had to pick one thing or you can do a couple things if you want to, I'll let you kind of take the wheel here on what has changed since you were a swimmer and like why? Just like why is swimflation happening?
Yeah, I think it's the just mass spread of information so quickly. I mean, it's so valuable. Like, um, I've always been somebody who's been kind of obsessed with that. And I'm sure there's a ton of these kids now who are same, if not more so. But you would get like I remember when Eamon Sullivan broke Alexander Popov's 50 free record. It was actually the first day the super suits were out, which later we found out made made a bigger difference.
Yeah, a little
Um,
bit.
but it was like we were coming home from a meet and it was like crowded around the one kid who had an iPhone, and it was like a grainy video of that somebody just filmed on a like handheld camera. And I mean, I probably watched that literally like 500 times. Caesars 18.4. I watched that video on YouTube 6 or 7 times a night for like a year.
Yeah.
I think now the fact that it's like, oh, a world record was broken yesterday in Russia. Here's the super high like resolution film. Here's what they're doing underwater. We get we get the answers to the test a lot faster. Um, I think it's that. I think coaches are just getting smarter as well. But if I had to pick one thing, I think it's just the mass spread of information. I do think it's there's a lot of value in things like this, and just podcasts and like people are excited about learning. I think they always have been, but it's a lot harder when it's like, okay, you got to go to a library, find a book, like search through that. When now you can like get good information faster. Now it's almost learning how to filter the valuable information, which is the hard part.
Yeah, soon you'll just be able to ask ChatGPT to
Yeah.
analyze your race video,
Oh yeah, totally.
and you'll be good to go. I had
Yeah,
ChatGPT like fire off a practice for me, and it opened up with like a 400 breaststroke smooth.
yeah.
I was like, "We're still
Nope.
good." So your job is still safe. But I mean, I 100%
Yeah,
agree with the. I
yeah.
think the hyper easy access to underwater footage, and I
Yeah.
think I actually said this about like how track. I mean, once this thing came out, pointed at
Yeah.
somebody running, and especially when like slow mo came out on an iPhone, everything's
Oh yeah.
happening on land. Obviously, it's track,
Yeah.
but everything's happening where you can see it. And then
Yeah.
swimming, it's like you have to hope that NBC is down there
Yeah.
filming. And it's like with Leon, I think it was at French Nationals, they had that great underwater footage. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
oh my God. Like, I hope
Yeah.
kids are watching this and they're like, I'm going to watch that 3 times every night before bed because you
Yeah.
can slow mo it. You can watch
Yeah.
exactly what he's doing with his hands. And obviously, you have to be gifted both in, the mental stamina to be able to put in the work that, a Leon puts in. And also, you have
Yeah.
to be extremely gifted just anatomically to be able to do the things that he's doing. But also, I think
Yeah.
when you factor in, I think swimflation is really mostly about depth. And you look at like the
Oh
50
yeah.
freestyle final at NCAA's, and it's like you're going to
Yeah.
go 18-8 and you might not score. And it's like
Yeah.
everyone is just getting so much better and also getting so much more specified as well.
Yeah.
But I also think, and I want to ask you this as a coach, do you think it's also that kids are just, and kids and adults, and it's easy to say kid because I'm like almost 30 at this point.
Yeah.
Do you think there's just more buy-in and more like with the like disregard for garbage yardage, and we're like, we're done with that, we're going to focus on, our race is 200 yards, we don't need to be doing 10,000 yards a day? Do you think that removal of garbage yardage and just kind of like monotony in swimming, and someone like yourself who is clearly dialed in and cares a hell of a lot about kids getting faster, do you think that's just
Yeah.
caused more buy-in and kids being like, and adults, kids and adults, just being more excited and open to listening to a coach and working with coaches?
I think that's definitely part of it. I think it's now being in the sport somewhat long enough, you can see that there's trends, and now it's like, okay, there's some trends that are just trends and some trends that are valuable. But I do think the average coach is just a lot better. They understand like practice has to be engaging and there has to be some level of specificity to what we're doing. I do think there is a lot of coaches who kind of get lost in the sauce the other way of like, well, this
Mhm.
isn't super specific, so we're not doing it. And I think for development, that's important. I mean, even for every sprinter in my group today just did half the set was freestyle and half was another stroke. Some of those people won't ever race that other stroke, but there's value in moving different ways. Um, but I think the depth is there for a lot of reasons because one, I think the buy-ins there because I think coaches are getting more. Um, they're coaching the person and actually making like a connection with athletes. It's kind of like required almost to be a coach now, where you can't just like yell at kids and just make them do the hardest stuff. And if they can't do it, you just keep yelling at
Ah,
them.
boo. Come on. That's
Yeah.
that's that's how we get better.
Yeah. So I think there's that, which makes kids like to do it more. And I think the like strength coaching side, all the stuff that used to be seen as just like wasn't connected. Now we're a lot better at that, and now we're learning how to connect those, which is really important. Um, so I think that's it, and I think it kind of leads to an interesting point, and that's the question that I kind of have is that we're seeing this incredible increase in the depth. Yeah, like the peaks are increasing as well, but it's still like I think some of it is now that we're getting the answers to the test so much quicker. We're able to get close to the top, but it's still really hard to take the next step. And you kind of need people. I mean, Leon's a great example of someone who. I mean, I'm sure we could ask his club coach, but how did he get so good at underwater kicking, and like how did he learn? Because like when you watch how he kicks, like the way it starts from like the way he uses his whole spine, it looks like a dancer. Like it's beautiful the way he does that. And it's like, okay, how we got to figure out how did he do that up to this point when he got to ASU and continued improving as well. But it's there's so many questions to that, and like, okay, is that applicable because it's something he did? I mean, he takes 6 underwater kicks off every single wall. Like literally, I thought it was a lie until he went that 407 500 free, and I was like, okay, he's not going to be able to do it the whole time. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That one,
um,
that one was fun. 'Cause I talked to him the day before, and I was like, "So what do you think you want to go in?" And he was like, "I just want to break the team record." And I was like,
yeah,
"You went like 331 the other day. I think I think you're probably going to be just fine." But yeah, I was on a headset for that race, and that was
yeah,
I think the first time. Maybe that's a lie. I knew he was really good at underwater kicking, but when I was looking up at the splits and like kind of talking on commentary, I think I like one of the commentary people that I was like working with asked me a question,
yeah,
like an open ended question because it was a 500 free, which is smart. You got to fill time. And I
right.
looked up and saw like his or 200 split, and I was like, we need to focus. Yeah, this is weird. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think, and if someone's like listening to this and they want to see a really good example of Leon's, like what you mentioned with him starting with his chest, I think it's the best way to see it is on his pullout. I mean, his pullout is
oh
something
yeah,
that's like it
yeah,
looks kind of like what we've been talking about in the you need to
yeah,
become perfect if you want to be able to like
yeah,
even chase a record, especially with the way that he's taking these short course yards records down. Um,
yeah,
the way that he sets that kick up and like whips it, and I mean, it looks like it's just another level of what we've been trying to do our entire
oh yeah,
existence as a sport. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, so I mean, with all of these advancements and like we took a step back with suits and then kind of came back and now we're like starting to get to the point where we've got like taping on the suits that's helping us kick a little bit. What do you
yeah.
think if you just had to like kind of throw a dart at a dartboard blindfolded? What do you think is the next like thing we're missing out on? Or like you don't have to like try to give away any of your secret sauce or any of like the things that you
Yeah.
are hypothesizing, but like what area of swimming do you think is still like underdeveloped?
So I think the thing that I've been kind of hooked on this last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months now is maybe even more than that, but really like the way in which we use the spine in all of our strokes, and specifically like how we train that. And it's such a huge part of movement, and I think we've been kind of mistaught that spines are meant to stay straight. And the reason why we do that is because that's what's best for back squatting, but very little of athletics is moved that way. And watching some of our best underwater kickers, they're like, yeah, they're crazy mobile in their like thoracic and everything, but it's also the way in which they can connect and like use their whole spine as part of a movement. And like training that I think is a really interesting thing, because 75% of the kids on our team still like don't have the mobility to um, even get there. So it's like, okay, that's something that needs to be trained from a young age to do. And like clearly, we're not doing it, and it's something in the last year or so when we've started just adding more of those movements in that you see a pretty crazy improvement. And like the going back to track, somebody who I've been obsessed with, like my wife is always like, "Why are you like always watching these videos of?" If anybody wants to go in a rabbit hole, search Niraj Chopra, who was world champ in the javelin. Some of the training he does, like he does this thing where he lays on a bench with a barbell, reaches it back, touches it on the ground, like with his head up, and pulls it back up. And he posted a video of himself doing about 225 with that, where his spine is bent, like literally the whole, like where it's like, okay, you're definitely gonna just blow all of your disc.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I would.
but
Yeah, for sure. I would probably
yeah,
never walk again.
yeah, but he clearly, like, he obviously trained himself to have strength at these extreme ranges of mobility. That's like, we don't need to do anything like that in swimming. But if we can get some of that in just how we start that underwater kicking, like Leon is a good example of somebody who um, I don't like to say he naturally does that because there obviously was a lot of development that went into what he does and how he does it. But he's somebody who makes it look natural. And all of the best underwater kickers on our team have done that same thing. Um, so it's like, how do we incorporate that into training? Because I think we've gotten really good on the strength side of things. But there's still all training, there's a yin and a yang, so there's like a cost to what we're doing. And I think some of that is um if done not correctly, there's a loss of mobility and there's a loss in certain areas. So learning how to do that, and yeah, it's probably not just the big four exercises, which we've kind of been doing, and it's helped us get pretty far. But watching these, I mean, a lot of the throwers and things like that are people I really like watching train. They're doing these exercises I would not think of, and they're doing like max effort stuff on stuff that you're like, wait, that's a mobility exercise. How are you
Mhm.
pulling 225 pounds or there? So it's like they're kind of using the same aspects from like the strength training side and applying it on different levels. And I think it's that, and it's kind of that connection of all of those parts of training that we're going to continue to get better, because we all kind of know how to get better at certain things, but it's a constantly changing problem. And that's the hard part, is that once we go down this path, and once we, in theory, if this works and we get much better at this, well, then there's going to be areas lacking other places. So we have to move back there. And it's like having the ability to recognize when it's time for a change is really the hard part. And that's the yeah, kind of really rabbit hole that I've been I've been trying to learn about these last few months.
So what you're telling me is when I was trying to PR my back squat in college by 5 pounds and try to squat like 350, that might not
Yeah,
be an accurate number. As a 400 IMer, it probably wasn't the best idea. And I
yeah,
probably shouldn't have been lifting with, my lifting partner in college. Do you know Kaiser? Kaiser Witt or
yeah,
White? Yeah.
yeah.
So he was my lifting partner in college.
Okay,
If,
yeah. He's
if
like a
you're,
power lifter, right?
he is the heaviest Olympic lifter, I think, in the history of our country.
Dang.
And he was
Yeah,
my training partner. And actually, I'll go into a quick story about him. So
yeah,
Kaiser was a guy that I trained with at ASU. He was, I think he transferred in from Missouri, was a sophomore when I was
yeah,
there. And I loved lifting heavy. It was probably something that got me into trouble
yeah,
performance wise in the water because I was a
yeah,
400 IMer. And it's kind of where I think I need a suit so that my legs will float a little bit more because I
yeah,
just genetically walk by a squat rack, much like a 15-year-old guy will walk by a swimming pool in PR. I walk by a
yeah,
squat rack or walk into a gym or near protein. And I just get bigger. I just pack on muscle and I hold muscle really well. Weird flex, but take it for what you want. And so I ended up training with Kaiser, and I remember watching him deadlift like 400 pounds because we were the heaviest lifters on the team.
yeah,
And I mean, we were throwing on 2 extra 25s, which is 25 kilos. There you go. So if you're listening from Europe and we're talking about
Yeah,
yard swimming, there's a little kilo thing for you.
yeah,
So we'd throw on 2, and then he would deadlift this thing with the worst technique I've
yeah,
ever seen. And I'd just be like, you're different. Like, there's
yeah,
something going on there. And then I think randomly I saw on Instagram, he posted like a video of him snatching like 190 kilos. And I was
yeah,
like, I knew it. I knew you were different, but I didn't know you
yeah,
were that different. Um,
yeah.
but so I want to talk a little bit about training. We touched very briefly on garbage yardage. You post a
Mhm,
lot on Twitter, like just things that y'all do like in the middle of the pool, things that
mhm.
y'all do like that are clearly just like a 25. I want to just do a quick hit and and get your shortest workout that you've ever done yardage wise with your sprint group, and then also kind of go into like the science and the, how you come up with these training things and tools that you come up with. But what is the shortest workout that you've ever done with the sprint group?
I mean, 125. Yeah.
Just 125 the whole
Yeah,
practice?
yeah,
One
yeah.
length of the pool and then you're done?
We've done that. Or, uh, yeah, I mean, we've done that, and we do that now. Normally, about a week or two before the meet. I mean, that's one I'm referencing. They had a meet warm up tour. It was like, okay, suit up. We have like a record board that we keep track of the fastest 25s we've done, and it's just suited 125, one shot, um, and you go, yeah. And that's the physiology behind that is it's a max effort, and max speed is max speed. The stimulus for max speed is how fast you're going, not how many times you do that. If you do it too many times, the stimulus turns into speed endurance. There's kind of internal pathways that get triggered when stimuli are received by the body. So for that, we're trying to go as fast as you can. Also, I think there's a psychological side to it, to where in the meet, in prelims, you get one shot. If you screw that up, you
It's
don't
over.
get to swim again.
Yeah.
So I like that. And there's been times when people um, mess up or want to do it again, and it's like, no, they you don't. Like, you're done.
Yeah.
That was your shot. And I think that's part of the learning process, and learning how to kind of going back to the suits and learning how to handle that stress of making it a stressful thing, making it to where your name gets knocked off the list. You can knock your way on. It's valuable to do it that way. Um, so yeah, that's a pretty something we've done quite a few times. I've um, done that before, to where we do that with no warm up in the pool. So you have to figure out how to get yourself ready without getting in a pool. So yeah, that's kind of a stand. I mean, we have our max speed days that we typically do about once a week. Um, are pretty much always under 1,500, maybe like about 1,000 sometimes total yards in the practice. And that's even in December and January, when we're at like in our heaviest time of training,
No,
because
nope, not in January and December. You got to be doing 15,000
yeah,
yards every single time
yeah,
you look at a pool.
because that's the stimulus in which we're trying to achieve on max speed. I mean, I take that
Yeah.
a lot from Charlie Francis, who's a very famous track coach. He would kind of have a rule: if you win a PR in something that was a max speed effort, you're done for the day.
Hmm.
Um, and I kind of try and have that same thing, to where we're doing max speed. And yeah, sometimes it's like, okay, I'd rather go most a lot of still my just intuition sometimes, like, okay, we need to do 8 of these and be able to repeat it. But that's not how the swim meets work.
Hmm.
Because some kids, it takes 2 or 3 for them to figure out how to do it. And those kids might not make finals if they if they do that at the meet. So it's learning how to be fast on your first rep. Sometimes that's an organized warm up. Sometimes that's not. Sometimes that's a good warm up. Sometimes that's a bad warm up that I'll even write to make it something where they're unprepared in how they feel going into the race. Um, so I think that's the way in which we train, to where we're trying to give them new information. Um, and it's like you're not trying to repeat the solution over and over again. You're trying to solve problems over and over again in practice. So our job as coaches is to assign practices where they're learning new information. That is different from what a lot of periodization textbooks say, where it's like, well, no, you have to have more, like overload is just volume or intensity. Those are options, but it's also an option to change the way in which you're doing it, or change the approach you have leading into it. So it's like it is a new problem that way.
Yeah, I mean it's such a fun game, right? It's uh
Yeah.
it's a game that I think for a while we just kind of like you said. I mean, my intuition is the exact same way. I kind of got a little bit anxious when you started talking about only getting one shot at something because I would probably screw that shit up and
Yeah.
then be like, I gotta go one more time or I'm not gonna be able
Yeah.
to sleep and then I'm gonna come in
Yeah.
tomorrow. And it kind of goes back to like the old school mindset of like, you only get one shot and you only get one shot at the end of the season. And if it doesn't work out, then you can blame your taper. You can blame
Yeah.
this, you can blame that, you can blame the fact that you weren't really that thirsty in the morning. So you're probably a little bit dehydrated. And actually that was
Yeah.
probably a real thing that I did. I probably should have drank a lot more water. Um, but talking about suits, kind of like bringing everything full circle, I did have one question that I wrote down. It's right in front of me. I'm going to read it off the
Yeah.
screen. Um, at the I forget what was it called. It was the duel in the pool, not the one between us and the country that talked a lot of shit about
Yeah.
us recently, which is very fun and exciting. But the one between us as in ASU, which I got to stay a little bit unbiased, and then we'll finish
Oh
with a little
yeah.
bit of an NCAA
Yeah.
commentary type thing at the end.
Yeah.
If FINA, the reason I was asking is at that duel in the pool, we got to like swim some relays, and you wore a full bodysuit. If
Yeah.
FINA polled coaches right now on whether or not we should reallow super suits to be used in swimming, would you vote yes or would you vote no?
I would vote no. Just because I don't I like more of the fact that it's like, okay, we kind of have this, and I like the measurement of this. Like, I think they look kind of cool now. Um, I think they do enough, and it's a lot. I also know it's a total pain to put those on. Um,
Luckily, I never
so
had to.
yeah,
So,
so yeah, like I would vote no. Just like, and if I lost that vote, I wouldn't lose any sleep or really change too much. But I do like that. Like, I like the textile. I like the limitations. I like to where it's more of adapting the body and there's minimal effective change. Because like in track, we're dealing with that right now, with the carbon fiber soles on the
mhm.
shoes, and that's something to where it's like, okay, think about how many of these close to world records just occurred and several world records did occur. They're wearing different shoes that have like bounce in them, which it's like, okay, rather than having to adapt the foot, you now can put on a shoe that does that, which I think has physiological limitations, because I like the learning about just the body, and I like the purity of the sport with just the jammer. And like I said, I think the jammer does enough, and does, like, they look kind of cool, because I was worried when they first banned suits, and then Speedo came out with that like super high waisted and the big goggles, and I was like, we look like
Oh
nerds.
man,
We look
that
so
yeah. If you're listening to this, you don't know what we're talking about. Google Speedo FS3,
yeah.
and you'll see. You'll just be probably a little bit confused, as I think
Yeah.
a lot of people were.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, like on the flip side of that, I think like I've thought of that with like the full body. If we could do NASCAR and you have like huge sponsorships,
Yeah.
stuff like that would be cool. I feel like it's funny how just like 2 or 3 years ago, suit companies were like, "Do you think they'd want like colors and texture and stuff?" And they were like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So now suits like look cooler, and now they have those custom suits and stuff. So I think we're close to getting pitchfork, like huge pitchforks and stuff on it. Hopefully,
Yeah, we talked about
we're
that, I think, a couple days
uh,
ago. I
yeah,
need it. I need it.
yeah,
Like an all white ASU tech suit with like
oh,
a
yeah,
with Sparky on the side. Oh
Yeah,
man, I would
yeah,
tweet that. I mean, immediately. But
yeah,
so speaking of change, and we'll kind of wrap up with a little bit of an NCAA conversation.
yeah,
There's some change happening in the sport and the structure of NCAA swimming.
yeah,
And you guys are leaving the Pac 12 and coming over to the Big 12, where I do commentary, and I will have
yeah,
the fun job of having to try to not sound like I am just sitting at home talking about my school and just
yeah.
cheering for ASU. But I promise, if you are from ESPN or the Big 12 conference and you are listening, I will do a good job, I swear. How was it received on the pool deck? Did you have kind of like, because there are definitely pros and cons of, changing conferences, right? You guys are right next to Cal and Stanford and, Utah
Yeah.
and all of these schools. You kind of had your little pool over there. And then now the biggest thing that I think people are afraid of is the travel and the distance, and people having signed up for one thing and then now are being dealt a different hand. How was it received just for your team? And, what was the general vibe?
I mean, I guess if there was many negative interpretations, they weren't super vocal about that because I think we were all pretty positive because it's shifting to what personally I'm really excited about the Big 12 championship because it's going to be a combined meet. So men and women will be there. There's, I think it's 16 total team. There's 7 men, 9 women's teams, which is one more than the Pac 12 currently has. Um, so there'll be more people there. It'll be a little more, I think it'll be more exciting of a meet because there's 16 teams basically there. So that many more fans will come. We're going to change the format to the 5 day meet, the way SEC does it. Um, so I think that'll be a big positive. And with the just more like just different teams. Like there's a lot of depth in the Big 12. The Pac 12 is definitely fun because there's so much, I mean, just super high end talent. But there will be more teams and more from all over the place. So I think it'll be a really good thing. I mean, I know everybody was dealt a pretty just crazy hand where it was like a ton of unexpected change that happened. But I like very positive about that. And I think it's like some logistical things having to meet a couple weeks earlier will be, I think, better for preparation for NCAA's. There's also been one men's coach who's ever won a Big 12 title, and that's Eddie Reese. So hopefully we can mix that up, which is crazy, where he's won for like 50 years or however many in a row now.
Yeah, I think it's like I might be in the 40s. It's something like that. We always
Yeah,
read the stat off before Big 12s.
yeah,
But yeah, so I don't want to cut you off, but a fun segue. I was talking to, so one of my really good friends is a former West Virginia swimmer, and
yeah.
he was like, he texted me and he was like, "Are you kidding me? We we finally almost had a year where Texas wasn't going to be in the conference and we would have had like a fun battle, because Texas
Yeah,
is just stacked and they just dominate that conference. And then
yeah,
now we're just sliding in ASU, who is like now competitive with Texas. And it's just
yeah,
like this big like switch, which
yeah,
I think is a pretty funny way to look at it, at least.
yeah.
But so that means that this year is kind of I would say the like infinite glory Pac 12 title meet.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
thought about it at all? And that being like, you get infinite bragging rights if you win
Yeah.
this Pac 12 title.
I mean, a little bit. I think personally, I don't want to be distracted and making anything more than what it is, because then that takes you away from the moment. And in my opinion, it's like to be prepared for when the moment comes, you have to stay in the moment. If we make it too much of like preparing for the next thing or making something bigger and bigger, when it's time to do that, one, we've been spending like a whole year training our nervous system to be focused on a later point, and then when it's here, it's hard to focus. But it's definitely exciting to say like, okay, guys, this is it. Like I mean, it's fun the rivalry we have against Cal. I mean, hopefully they agree that it's not just us being like a one sided rivalry. but it was like last year at Pac-12. It was so much fun, like actually like having a meet and actually like looking at the team scores, and you could tell they were into it as well. So that's really fun. And yeah, like it's going to be exciting this year to where we've gotten. I mean, knock on wood, we've been reloaded pretty well. Our team's good. Their team's very good as well. So we know it's going to be a big meet. We know kind of what it's like to actually be on the winning side of that. So it is going to be really exciting. I mean, I know our guys are already talking about that, talking about NCAAs as much as they should. I mean, we encourage them to stay on just like, okay, how do we make today the best it can be? And then that'll take care of itself. But yeah, it's definitely exciting with just how stacked the Pac-12 is, and how it's like, okay, we've got these crazy deep finals where it's. I mean, last year the 100 free, we had four, they had three in the A final, and then it was like two or three in the B. They had two or three. Like every race, it was just like, I mean, a slugfest. So that's fun. And yeah, I mean, we want to be as ready as we can, and it's one of those things that like you can't make it more intense because like once you reach 100%, it's there. I mean, I know last year was like like a movie. I mean, we had stuff to where it was okay, all this stuff happened, and then it's like it looks like they're going to pull ahead, but we tie, and then it's going to be a swim off for. Then we'll have more, and so it was like everything was just super exciting. So I like we're not going to ever replicate something
Yeah.
like that, but it will be a big thing that everybody is gonna give everything they have to win. I know Cal do the same thing. Every time we race them, it's like when we think they're like, okay, they're not going to be as good this time. They're just like hats off to them. They always do a great job in preparing every single kid on their team. So it'll be a lot of fun.
So I think with the maybe with the tech suit type thing. I think that
Yeah,
was really what kind of kicked this thought off in my mind. It kind of feels like ASU has a little bit of a target on their back. And it feels like, I wouldn't say that y'all are like one of the loudest. I mean, yeah, you're probably one of the loudest teams in the NCAA, which for
yeah,
swimming is hilarious that
yeah.
Bob tweets out, hey, maybe we should wear tech suits all the time. And everyone's like, we're coming for y'all. um, is there like a general feeling of like, listen, people are looking at us, people want to beat us, people want to take us out, but we are, we're gonna race, we're gonna wear suits, we're gonna be us. What's the kind of like general feeling? Do you guys feel like you have a target on your back?
Not really. I mean, with the suits and stuff, it's like, okay, we're doing this our way, and we're gonna do our way the best we can. If you don't like that, well, like, okay. I mean, it's kind of funny that um, with the suit thing, it's like, well, we've got the cards in our hand because if you don't want to wear the suits, like you're gonna lose. So it's like silly that that's like a big thing because it's like you can't really argue that. Like, and it's like that. It's another good example to where, like when we dueled Cal last year, they no one on their team wore suits. Um, and they want to do things their way. We want to do things ours. We kind of met, and it was like, okay, we just both did separate things. Um, so it's one of those things where I feel like I can take a step back and like, okay, they did it their way. They do their way very well, and it's like, okay, kind of hats off to them for doing that. Um, but I think our way is a lot more fun, and like, I mean, it's you can't be legit without haters. So like, it's okay to have people do that.
That's true.
Yeah,
It's true. Oh man, I'll still like I'll get like random tweets thrown at me sometimes, and I like it's so difficult to be like, this is a good thing. It's a good
yeah,
thing that people are out there and people are at least listening.
yeah,
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go ahead and get out of here. I gotta go eat some food and
yeah,
get to bed and do all of that stuff. But if you guys are listening, Herbie has an incredible Twitter. If you don't follow him already, please go over there. I will link it in whatever type of description, whatever platform we are currently on. Click that,
yeah.
scroll a little bit. If you like it, that's great. He'll post some books on there. I'll do some recommendations, all of that stuff, random training aids, and maybe a whole practice front to back, which is just a 25 freestyle. But click that link, go check it out. Follow Herbie, follow along with the Sun Devils this season. Maybe they have a target on their back. Maybe they don't. Depends on who you're talking to. But thanks for jumping on. I hope this isn't the last time. We'll have to do it again sometime this season, sometime next season, hopefully for the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, appreciate you having me on. Again, congrats on USA Swimming. I think USA Swimming's in a better spot for having you on it. And excited to listen to those meet, do whatever it is that you're going to be doing. I'm like honestly pumped for it.
Right on. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I'm still figuring out what exactly I want to do with it, but I think it's a step in the right direction to be able to, really lean into this and try to turn this into something that's crazy and something that the sport has never had before. So appreciate it. Thanks for listening, y'all. Once again, thanks for coming on, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, no, thank you.